Hello, Guardians. It is Ebontis. It is August 15th, and it doesn't seem like there's any story stuff in the game today, which isn't a surprise. That logged in and checked, so whether you're doing bounties, I will be farming Last Wish a decent amount when I can find time, depending on what my schedule does, so hopefully today or tomorrow. I'm just going to try and farm as much as I can, see if I can get any of those patterns unlocked, because Chaos begins next week. Now, this is a very big face. This is Joe Blackburn. He is one of the game directors, I think game director, and then Justin Truman. They may have co-titles or something like that, but it's usually those two sitting on the main part of the stage. And they'll be there for the showcase. But this is Joe putting out something a little more real than I expected today. And you can take this with a grain of salt. You can take it however you want to. But honestly, seeing Joe talk like this with just some notes and kind of shooting from the hip is, one, refreshing, and two, feels genuine. Now, again, there are things they mentioned that I was honestly surprised that they stated. I listened to this once, but what I'm going to do is kind of go through, and if there's a point where I want to say something, I'm just going to pause it, and we'll kind of go as we go. So let's get started, because this thing just jumps right in.
Hey, everybody. It's Joe, and I'm just here to check in on how Destiny's going. So a few weeks ago, we put about state of the game communication that wasn't up to our standards for what y'all have come to expect for those kinds of communications. It didn't provide the high-level vision that we normally provide, and really and truly, a bunch of us were heads down working the final shape and weren't able to give it the sort of care and love that we normally put into these kind of communications. And that's nobody's fault but mine here on this. So I wanted to come in, talk to you all directly, and sort of give you an update on what we thought about the state of the game that we put out and what we think about Destiny as a whole. Now, this is going to be pretty different than normal. This isn't a highly produced sort of production. It's me in my office. It's not scripted. I've got a bunch of notes here that we're going to read through. And it's going to feel probably more like you're just in a meeting with me, which is going to be rambly, and we're probably going to mess up a few times. But really, I just want to go over where we're thinking about the game. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the reveal coming out next week. We're going to talk about PvP. We're going to talk about armor. We're going to talk about our communication strategy. Those are the big ones. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with reveal. Next week, we're going to go out and we're going to show an awesome showcase for the final shape. We're really excited about a bunch of the content in there, but truly, that showcase is not a reaction to the state of the game last week. It's not a reaction to a bunch of the sentiment online, and it's definitely not a reaction to this video. It was recorded a while ago. I think I have a mustache in the video, and it's a pretty focused reveal. In the same way that the game itself is pretty focused. The final shape is focused on the light. It's focused on the enemies we've been setting up and the allies that you've come to know.
Now, before I go any farther, I do want to mention to you guys, one, today, seems like rumor has come out the showcase is going to be about 45 minutes. So you can expect that the showcase is going to do a pretty good deep dive on final shape, what is going on with the story. We're going to have artists, we're going to have developers probably talking about what it was like to design the new world, what it was like working on the story, where the narrative team is at, what is going on with the different characters in the system. That is part of what those reveals are going to be, because that's how they typically handle them. Now, some of my hopes for the showcase are seeing anything about the future. And again, they talk about, he mentions a little bit here in the future of what, a little farther into the video, what it is honestly going to probably be a very tiny tease of what the future holds, because he mentions the future seasons, nothing else. I'm hoping we get something like the big title cards for whatever saga may come after Final Shape, because a lot of players want to know what is coming next. But he said it right there. State of the game came out, and it's not what they typically do. People were head down. They had collaboration of teams, didn't get the same edit. It's not like a game director wrote his dissertation for the year and put all of the pieces together, had a couple editors look at it. And we all know when you read through it, it didn't give us a lot. Now, also, I thought the timing of it with GCX, that's not a big deal. The timing of it related to the showcase, they can't tell you a bunch of new stuff because the showcase is literally already recorded and they're going to do that. But they also stated it wasn't great, and they're aware of that. Now, to have Joe, a game director, sit down and do this is something we do want to happen, because generally, you don't get this much candid honesty from anybody outside of you know, a rare moment in game development for whatever reason it may be. But towards the end of this, they talk about their communication. So if you go in the comments and just crap on all over this idea, we will get less communication than we're getting now, which is bad. If you say, thank you for the information, can't wait to see what's next, or, you know, this is a little bit too late, but I am curious to see what it holds. Some things are good, some things are bad. Give it constructive criticism. If you just come into comments on my video or come into Twitter and crap on the video or say horrible things, you're going to get real quick feedback by the end of this video that they're not going to talk very much. So again, for a game director to come out and basically just be honest on Twitter, not very common. So take a second, put yourself in his position. They do not have good feedback coming their way right now, and they want to try. Not saying not to everyone's point that has probably commented on the past 3 years of the state of PvP and everything else, it might sound like this is too little too late. But if you hate the game, move on. If you want to see it have a chance, maybe you know, we'll see what we get as we go through this. So here we go.
It's not about a bunch of wacky new systems or wacky new themes coming into Destiny. Instead, we want to make an experience that's super easy for anyone who's ever played Destiny to come in and absolutely fall in love with the content that's before them. I think the other thing that's really important here to know, as I sort of look at my meeting notes, is that communication is built for a pretty wide audience, much wider than probably whoever is watching this video.
And that's the thing to remember as well. When you get into the actual showcase, that is for the entire internet, all of us, and all the casuals, the hardcores, the elites, and all the player base in between. Most of the people who watch my content, who watch YouTube content creators, who listen to podcasts, which you guys know I do, that is a small portion of the audience. Now, they may be the vocal minority, if you want to put it in quotes, but in general, there's a lot of people who just play the game, have fun with it, and roll with the content that's there. There are some free-to-play players. There's a lot of people who are not like in the nitty-gritty of Reddit, reading a thread to understand stats and builds and everything to that nature. So the couple next things that he says here are stuff that we may see in blog posts, we may see in other places, but keep in mind when you go into that showcase, who it's for. It's for like a Gamescom. That is where that trailer is likely going to turn around and be shown again, or at least part of it is going to be something like Gamescom. It is not going to be for the very
what we're
everybody.
Not going to talk about is things like a big new Strange Coin refactor and Xur revamp. That's kind
I don't want to pause right there. That's mean to
of
Joe.
out.
So literally Xur getting a rework. It's been a while. You've got Dares of Eternity sitting out there. Strange Coins, who knows, maybe re-rolling, like, again, you can speculate now, but that may not be a thing that's a focus. That doesn't mean it's not there. So, give it a chance. Some of these little tips are cool, so that's why I want to, like, pause on them.
In the final shape. We're not going to talk about things like a refactor of HUD elements where we're making sure the buffs and the debuffs are more clear and you can tell what's happening in higher level combat.
That's a big one, actually. Because when you get into anything like the new dungeon, you have buffs, you have armor charge, all of those things now listed on the left side of your screen. It gets to where you don't even know how much time you have left to go dunk a buff for a boss fight because you have other buffs from your character and your build and everything else on. So, if nothing else, just the fact that they're working on the HUD means that that higher level content, as you get into builds and things, will be a little easier to understand and read, which is, again, a good thing. If that's coming in final shape, nice to know it.
It's going to, again, really be focused on the story, really be focused on the location, and maybe we'll get into a little bit about how the live service of Destiny is going to change after the final shape.
Now that is the line. How the live service is going to change after final shape. Now you can speculate all you want. Is it going to be a subscription model? Probably not. They're not going to throw that big of a wrench into things. Is it going to be 3 seasons? Is it going to be 2 seasons? Is it going to be 4 seasons? We don't know. Are they going to change things up for future expansions? They may tease on some of that, and that's the little nugget that I'm looking for. But honestly, just know most of that is going to be based on the story, the characters, final shape. That is going to be the focus. They'll show off a couple cool exotics. Do not expect, as he said, a bunch of like crazy newness. I don't expect a subclass. I know there was that rumored leak about whatever it was and an icon. Excuse me. Sorry. Live video here too. But again, it does not sound like we are going to get a new subclass the way this is described. So if that's what you're hoping for, I would probably temper those expectations because it doesn't sound like it. Now, they could surprise you, which is cool, but do not go in expecting a subclass because that is not what this sounds like.
Following that showcase, Dan, our GM, and I are going to be on set, taking questions, dotting T's, crossing I's, or maybe the reverse of that, on what you've seen in the showcase. So we'll provide a little bit more clarity on what was shown, and we'll probably get into some ways that maybe our philosophy on the final shape or specific details might have changed over the last few weeks since we recorded the showcase. All right, I think that's it for reveal. If I'm looking at the sheet next, we've got...
And again, man, I gotta have some better pause moments for Joe. That's just mean. The Q&A afterwards. I don't know how long it's going to be because the season's going to start whenever that thing's done. They're going to be there. They're going to switch over and they're going to go live with whatever else remains. But that Q&A is obviously going to tell us a little bit more that has transpired in the last couple of weeks from feedback from lots of things, I'm guessing. So things change and they're going to be there talking about a few questions. Obviously, the chat is going to be ridiculous, so I'm sure there are going to be some specific questions people are curious about or stuff that they've heard. It's probably going to be very curated, but if there's more to know after that, we will definitely make note. So I will be watching that whole thing. I will be streaming that day. I'm probably going to have to literally record that live, turn around and upload my reaction from that, turn around over on YouTube. Probably not much editing, so if you want to watch the showcase with my thoughts as we go through it, you're going to get them. And then we'll jump straight into Season 22. I'll be live over on twitch.tv/Ebontis. Hangout, plenty of content coming on YouTube. The other thing, I don't know. There are multiple games coming out in that week. We have Immortals of Avium coming out on August 22nd, the same day. I have no idea what my coverage on like that might be. Sea of Stars, like my Chrono Trigger reimagined, hopeful remake. Like, the game looks amazing for me. It's an old school SNES looking RPG, but with some modern sensibilities. I love the demo. I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to play that, review it, or otherwise. There's also Starfield. I have no idea if I'm going to get a chance to touch that thing before it comes out, but it is definitely going to be popular. I don't know any and all of how much I'm going to be able to touch on those games on the channel, but I have enjoyed a little bit more variety. So if you guys are along for the journey, it's going to be Destiny and hopefully some other stuff as well. So that's just my piece.
PvP. So let's start with the state of PvP right now in Destiny. What have we been doing? What have we been focused on? We've been really focused on sandbox balance. So like, a big focus of effort last year was just making sure that Strand came out in a good place and got to live sort of in harmony with the rest of our Crucible ecosystem. Aside from that, we've been focusing on putting up 2 weapon balances per season, one at the start, one in the mid-season. And we've been focusing on ritual updates to PvP, be this mode updates, point updates, reward updates at the beginning of each season. Finally, we flip over to our agenda. We've been focused on making 1 new map and a few reprises a year.
This is probably the most important part, and I will give them, like, Sandbox Balance Team. I don't know if you're playing much PvP or not, but I will tell you the balance in the sandbox, while not perfect, because everybody's going to be like, Antaeus Hordes or Titans or whatever it may be, there are going to be ups and downs, but generally the way guns tend to feel, there's not a lot that feels pretty broken. Shout out to the Sandbox team. I know Mercules is a recent addition over there. There's a lot of people that have been there. I'm forgetting the director who's been on Final Shape. There are a lot of people on that team. I think they've actually been doing a very good job. Now, when it comes to PvE, things could be weaker, but I would say the PvP balance of weapons, generally what you take in there, is it going to be the most competitive thing in the world? Probably not, but I do feel like it's been in a decent place. I want to give them credit for that because those used to take much longer. Now we truly get one about every 6 weeks. That's a pretty good cadence for balancing, working on exotic updates and things of that nature. So the Sandbox team, shout out to all you guys. They actually have been killing it. You know, you've got new weapon perks and things like that on a consistent basis. That's been pretty reasonable in the grand scheme of things. So I did want to comment on that.
Now, all that aside, I think it's fair to say this approach is not producing the Crucible that our players expect us. So what are we going to do? How are we going to change? First, let's talk about maps. It's clear that the sort of slow trickle of PvP maps isn't having the effect we want. And although it gets an injection of PvP maps every so often into the ecosystem, it's also forcing this like 1 new map a year. It means you're trying to build a map that has to do everything, which means it can't be good at anything. So next year, we're going to change our philosophy. Instead of a slow trickle of maps throughout the year, we're going to focus our effort into a single map pack that's free for everyone. So imagine
That might be the most important line of all of them. It's free to everyone because we've talked about it on the podcast, we've talked about it other places. Anytime you inject maps into something where it is a core pillar of Destiny, whether you want to claim Gambit to be that or not, PvP and strikes and stuff like that, those are core. And strikes right now have some limitations based on what you own for expansions and stuff like that. I kind of wish they would give those, at least on the week that they're active, that you could play it as like the Nightfall. But PvP, if you make different map packs for different people and you fragment your base, that's terrible. So a free pack is the only way they could do this and not get just absolutely like anger the entire community. So free, good.
new maps coming in one drop where we can make a bunch of new experiences that can all be good at specific things and adds a big variety in a single drop next year. Now, this is a shift from our strategy, so it's going to take us time to sort of understand the details of what we're putting out here and getting that out to you all next year.
The fact that, now again, he doesn't say when next year. Could be season 24, 25, 26, 27. Those are the 4 seasons next year. If we're getting a new Mithrax map in season 22, we're getting the Citadel refurbished, whatever you want to call it, in season 23. 24 is going to be focused on Final Shape, but if you can get a map pack of like, I don't know, 3 or 4 maps in one season, if it's 4 would feel good. 1 map for each season, all dumped in at once, lets the variety pan out. It doesn't have this focus. They can use them in different game modes. That will help a little bit on the maps front, which is good. He goes on to talk about more.
Okay, maps are great, but we still really believe that PvP is about the foundation, and new maps aren't going to solve a foundation. So, modes. First of all, I'm really excited about what's coming out in season 22. First, with Checkmate. Checkmate is a mode all about that sort of primary fire, basic weapon excellence of Bungie games, and being able to show that excellence in a PvP setting. It's what a bunch of our like really marksman style PvP players have been asking for a long time, since Destiny 1. And we're finally going to put a mode like that in the game. And I'm super excited for a bunch of those players to get that experience starting right away in season 22.
Checkmate is, if you don't know and haven't read the other blogs, Checkmate is going to be a very weapons focused, slower time to kill. Headshots are probably going to matter more. All of those types of things, longer fights, things of that nature, getting it back to cover. It is going to feel different, and they typically don't do things that mess with the sandbox. But if this is going to be less abilities, more weapons, special ammo, so snipers and shotguns and stuff like that will be less common. It is all about the primary skill gunfight. So if you want to excel in that category, that may be one to look out, and they're using that as a modifier that they can put anywhere. So you might see Checkmate trials in a couple weekends. Who knows if they'll do that, but that's the idea behind Checkmate.
Next, we've got Relic. And so Relic is a different kind of mode, and it sort of is a building off of these experiments that we've been doing with things like Fortress or Eruption, where it's about this quality Destiny sandbox experience of your guns and your powers that escalates when you succeed in sort of a crazy mayhem-like experience. And we think the balance of those two things is a really great time to sort of spin away from other parts of the game and get the full spectrum of what Destiny has to offer. I'm really excited about things like Fortress, and I'm really excited that Relic is going to provide an experience like this that is both, fun for people that are really good at slaying out and also has these sort of like high octane hijinks moments to it.
Now, not everybody's insanely excited about Relic. It's a more party mode. I don't know if it's going to work like kill streaks, where if you excel, then you get the power of a Relic and you can go wreak havoc on everybody. We'll have to see how it plays out, of course, but it does seem like a leaning into more of a fun mode versus the other side of things.
But that's what we've already committed to. So let's talk about some new things that we think we need to do. One, we know we need to bring more of our modes into the core playlists. We've been putting a lot out in labs. We've been putting a lot out in Iron Banner. And to be honest, there's a few obstacles to us putting these into our core playlists, be this VO or small bug level issues that we just were like, I don't know if we're ready. I think that has been blocking us from doing the right thing here. So we're going to take on some of that bug wake. We're going to take on a little bit of the jank, and we're going to say, no. This isn't worth us not putting into the mode. And so we're going to take some of these modes that we've been putting in Crucible Labs, that we've been putting in Iron Banner, and taking them and putting them into the core PvP experience that most of our players experience. We've also heard a lot about comp.
Before we get to comp, it's a balance you can always develop to try and be perfect, but also like just being hamstrung by one little bug and making sure if you launch a mode into your control playlist that it's just not quite. I mean, you mentioned stuff like voiceover. I mean, if you have Shaxx not getting a couple of his lines in there because of some weird issue, most people would still just be happy to be playing the mode. Less lines, yeah, it may feel a little odd, but if you can enjoy the mode and be like, hey, we got some lines that are issues and stuff that's working on, get to it later. I'm okay with that change because generally, as long as you're not talking about people getting outside the map or other things, if it's just a couple odd things here and there, but you don't ship an entire mode to public or general rotation because of it, I can understand that kind of shift. I don't want them shipping junky products, but if it is stuff like voiceover on a PvP map, that shouldn't be holding it up. So it's always a balance in what you ship, because again, creative could develop to try and make it perfection forever. Producers need to get stuff out the door. There's a balance between both of those. We'll have to see how this plays out.
And particularly about the way that we reward points in comp. So
this is ridiculous.
We want to take a new approach, the way that we're balancing points in comp. Right now, we think it's just weighted too much on your personal MMR versus the people you're playing against. And when you win or when you lose a game, it can be really unpredictable how many points you're getting. We're going to go to a simpler system where winning or losing just matters more. Finally,
the only thing I will say about comp is it's not typical playlist I spend a lot of time in. The reason I haven't spent much time in it is mostly because when you have Twitter posts where somebody's like, hey, I played 5 games of comp, I won 4 and again like 6, 12, 20, 18 points, and then you lose one match and you lose 178 points in comp, that is not really some type of incentive for me to jump in there, because if you have 4 wins, you creep up a little bit, and you have 1 loss and you get knocked down 5 times the work you just put in, that is morally just defeating. And also doesn't seem to be balanced right, so hopefully they help fixing that. Again, a comp isn't really my world, but from what I've seen in posts and stuff, it's not the best.
Finally, we want to get great modes like Countdown Rush into competitive and get modes that people are less excited about, like Rift, out of the rotation. Making that competitive experience more about the game modes that, our players enjoy. Okay, so we've talked map strategy, we've talked modes. I want to talk one other effort we want to do here. We're going to bolster what we call a PvP strike team.
One thing I will say is don't get confused by the word strike team when it talks about PvP. The strike team, he's specifically talking about a separate unit of people built for PvP to do this hardcore dev effort. That's what he means, because I heard it once or twice. But yeah, strike team, he kind of explains, but is a separate team. So just keep that in mind.
Throughout Destiny development, we've built strike teams for efforts before. This has probably been sort of invisible to you all in the audience, but in moments like in between Curse of Osiris and Warmind, we built a strike team for Destiny investment. This team was sort of built around, hey, how can we make it more rewarding and more enjoyable to just get stuff in Destiny 2? This team built stuff very quickly, like what would eventually become the masterworking system. They also went through, knocked out a whole bunch of bugs, knocked out a whole bunch of quality of life issues. We're going to take the same effort and we're going to build a PvP strike team around the same principle, but have it focused on the Crucible. It's going to be led by PvP developers, and it has a really interesting playbook for how this works. And that's that first the team decides what they want to do. They as a team get together, say, hey, these are the changes we want to make. Those changes go through me. They go through our systems CD. And then when we say, yep, those are great changes, they immediately get communicated with you all in the community. Right, so this will be going out in a TWID, going out in a Twitter post, or going out on Reddit, right? Just sort of some immediate blast, like, hey, these are the changes coming. And those changes get communicated even before they start getting implemented. And then we start getting implemented. We found this formula is a really successful way for us to be able to push through changes quickly into the community. And I think one of the most exciting parts about these strike teams is we build them based off of community feedback. So these strike teams are built from the ground up to look at, hey, what are the pain points that are hitting our community the most? And so all this list is going to be built and burned down from, hey, these are the big issues the PvP community is looking at in Destiny. All right, I think that's the end of the PvP part of our agenda, if I'm looking at our notes here.
There's the meme with the paper. Perfect. I feel like I should almost take a screenshot of that, but I'll do that later. it is good to hear that they are going to be building a team to truly step up for PvP. Whether it's working on comp, whether it's modes like burning through more, whether it's map creation, I don't know what all that's going to entail. And of course, as he said, feedback will come out and be sooner. And a lot of people will say, where was this 3 years ago? Where was this 2 years ago in 2021 when you said you were going to build a PvP team? And that is also fair feedback. That is only something they can answer as a studio and choose to or not to answer. They had certain priorities they chose to run with. At this point, they are listening to the community because apparently everybody's pissed off enough. The voices are now being heard. So main reason I wanted to take a second just to focus on this is because some people are going to be like, too little too late. And you know what? If you've waited for 3 years and you haven't had the PvP pieces that you're looking for, that is understandable. But on the other side, if you still do enjoy Destiny and you can listen to what is being said, it does, in my opinion, sound like the efforts are going to be there. We will just have to see, words are one thing, the actions will be another. We will see what actually comes, the fruits of their labor. What do we actually get in the end? Have to see if this is worth it. But it does sound like they're going to put in a valiant effort. I wish I could read the notes and it wasn't crazy blurry, but yeah, that's a great frame for another day.
I think we're now going to talk about armor. It's probably been a while since we talked about this part about armor, but we might have talked about it before. I want to start with just talking about armor visual categories in Destiny. So at the top, we've got what we call aspirational armor. This is stuff like raids, trials, dungeons. We want the armor that comes from these activities to be flashy, or to really talk about the core of what that experience is. It's really important that when players earn these armors, they feel proud, they want to wear them, they want to show them off in the tower. Next, we've got silver, right? This is armor that you can buy for the store for silver. It's important for us that this feels like it's sort of breaking the mold of what you could expect in a Destiny game. It's our place to experiment with stuff that's a little bit fourth wall breaky.
And this is where you're going to see those things like collaborations. Now, Travis on the podcast, not a fan of God of War and Ghost of Tsushima and Horizon Zero Dawn coming into the games. And you never know what collaboration they may do next. Like Fortnite is a thing. We had Fall Guys. It is a business thing when it comes to the Eververse. Now, what I do appreciate them saying is if that's your goal in the Eververse is to have fun, I am totally fine with that, because on the other side, it sounds like the armor, and again, this is one of those things, if you look at the dungeon from this season, we get a great set of armor from the dungeon. There's another thing that he says in here later that I'm actually very pleasantly surprised they said. The raid armor, very unique whether you like it or not. It is very unique and specific to that. Trials as well does have its pieces. Now, some stuff feels lacking, but I would say in the past, say, 6 months or so, this shift does seem to be noticed, at least by somebody like me, who wishes like Pit of Heresy had an armor set that looked like Zolmak or whatever that big fire dude is. If I had an armor set that looked like that, I'd probably never take it off. But now we got some cool stuff, so let's talk about more.
And importantly, we want anyone that spends silver on armor to feel like, hey, it was worth it, right? Like I got my money's worth when I spent this armor. It was cool. Then we have what I call narrative armor. This is the stuff that you'll see in any sort of our marketing trailers. This is the stuff that you earn in the season pass. It's the stuff that you earn in the post game of a campaign. And it's really about driving home what that specific moment in time was. So in season 21, it's deep sea diver armor, right? In Witch Queen, it's a sort of like weird paranormal detective armor. You'll see what it is in the final shape here in a week or so. But that armor for us is really about like driving home this clear, consistent fantasy of like, oh yeah, I was there. I remember that time in Destiny. Finally, we've got rituals and blues. And this space has always sort of been about that core Guardian fantasy. What does the Guardian look like that you would imagine as sort of the stereotypical everyday Guardian, or the Guardian that you see on the front line? Maybe tragically a Guardian that tried to go into the portal of the Traveler and then gets cut up into a million pieces.
Yeah, that was great.
This is that spot. And we need a lot of armor here to sort of flesh out those fantasies. Now, sometime in the middle of last year, we sort of reevaluated our priorities on armor. And we said, hey, we need to be spending more on the armors that people care the most about, the people that earn, that spend, that do all this so they can sort of get these armors in the game. So this is like our PvP stuff in trials, our aspirational stuff in raids and dungeons, our narrative stuff. We thought we weren't consistently hitting the bar enough in those looks. And I think that since that initiative, we've been really successful.
And I would say on that, I honestly agree. A lot of the armor has been better. You've got your scuba diver set, you've got your sea set from the season pass, you've got the raid, the dungeon, the campaign. I will say that's been improved. The issue was we weren't told, and he talks about that.
This. We've put out great stuff in terms of like cowboy armor for Spire. We've put out awesome stuff in the Root of Nightmares raid, and we've put out a bunch of awesome armor sets for sort of a deep sea fantasy last season and Season of the Deep. Now, what we failed to do when we reprioritized, hey, where are our resources going, is communicate this to you. So we knew that when we made this change, we were going to be able to make a ritual armor set every single year. And we thought, okay, well, that's fine. We have a lot that fits this sort of base Guardian fantasy.
Now, I gave them a very hard time about the state of the game when they said they can't do a ritual armor set every year. Because when you turn around and you see Eververse for silver, that's fine. You've got the rituals, not a high priority, not doing a whole lot. One free, one per year. They do say they will be doing it in final shape. And honestly, when it comes to the ritual set, I tend not to care. But, it's very easy to understand why it's not. My other issue, they said, is like it's not generally equipped very often. I was like, I focused a piece and the stats were junk. That is generally why. On the other side as well, it's also ornaments are very generic. Got to give us a little more to make it something we want to interact with, and even the free players to feel a little bit cool. So we'll see what comes out of this. But yeah, that was why I gave him a very hard time, because I can scream out from the rafters why that stuff was not ever engaged with, because it was kind of junk and pretty basic.
But we should have communicated that out to you. And so, one, I'd like to say, this is not a thing that we're never going to invest in. We're investing in it again in the final shape. There's going to be a whole nother ritual suite of armor. And we're excited to sort of replenish that base Guardian fantasy. But just because we're doing that in the final shape year, that doesn't mean that we communicated this soon enough. So also for this year, we want to take an armor set that we were going to put in the Eververse, and we're saying, no. We should have communicated this earlier. It's really important that our fans can trust us. Let's take this armor set that we were going to use in season 22 for the Eververse set, and let's say, no, it's going to be free, and we're going to put it as ritual rewards. So next season, before the end of the season, you should see a brand new armor set that you can earn through playing Strikes, Crucible, Gambit as like a ritual reward for doing this, a brand new armor look. Again, we're confident in our strategy going forward. We believe this is the right priority going forward, but also it's our responsibility to communicate this stuff sooner. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by all the fans.
They don't have to do that. I'll be honest. And that's one of those points to where it's like, we said one thing, we didn't do it. They're living up to their word by taking something out of Eververse and putting that in the ritual. Honestly, I'll take that. That I will take as a small W, just for the fact that they don't have to do that. They could just say, hey, we didn't do it this soon. You're gonna get one in the final shape. Just live with what you got for now. They're gonna take something that was gonna be in the Eververse that was going to be, I don't know what that does for financially. They're gonna give it to you for free in your playlists. Not gonna be that hard to earn. If it looks cool, this is a nice gesture. So I gotta see it to know for sure, but I appreciate the nod.
All right, I think that's armor. Let's talk about comms. Okay, we've talked a lot about how the development team is very busy, and I think that although we really want to be focused on delivering great content to y'all and making sure that's our top priority, that doesn't mean our communications have to suffer. And so the first thing, we want to be talking to y'all more. But talking to y'all more, our number one priority, we have to keep our community members and our community leaders safe from the Bungie side. I don't want anyone that signs up to come work at Bungie and to talk to y'all about the game to have to worry about their personal safety. So we're going to keep using our branded accounts. You'll see these on.
Can I stop right there? Do not go harass devs. It should be very simple and it should be very obvious. There's nothing in the world of video games that means you should go and attack a developer in any way, whether it's verbally on Twitter or way worse, in which happened, and that's why we don't have one of our community managers and there was a massive lawsuit. Not worth it. If you are not enjoying Destiny, walk away from the game. It is understandable to be passionate, and you can have constructive criticism. That is totally fine. If you attack an individual person who is trying to develop something which is a world that we enjoy spending many of our hours in, you can have frustration that, hey, somebody somewhere made a decision I didn't like. Do not go attack a developer. That should not be something anybody has to say. But as they're saying right there, if you want to see communication from Bungie, be reasonable human beings. And all the people I'm saying this to probably don't need to hear it. It's all of the keyboard warriors out there who feel like they can say whatever they want behind the veil of a keyboard. But if you met them in person, 99.99999% of that would never say it to your face. And if they did, well, then they're just a fill in the blank with your choice word. But I just want to say that it seems very, very obvious. Be a decent human being and don't go attack developers. There's way better things you should be doing with your time, and that is an awful thing to do. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And if you want to see communications, be reasonable, because that's the only way they're going to keep coming.
Twitter, and you'll see these on Reddit, right? And we want to be using those accounts with more personality, going and talking to y'all more. The other thing is me. I play the game a bunch, and right now I don't have a bunch of time to be writing sort of big, long blog posts like you would assume. But when season 22 rolls around again, I'm going to be in the game a lot. I'm going to be playing a lot. So what we want to do is commit to a few times next season and the season after. I'm just going to stream me playing the game. And you'll be able to come and talk to me. And it's not going to be reveal packed, but it is a great time to just be like, hey, check in with Joe. These are the things that we're feeling. Get his opinions on them. And hopefully, if I can get and play with some of our like elite players, me learn a bit more of the game. I learned a ton from playing with y'all in the community about different builds that are exciting and different ways to roll. So I want to commit, get out there, play some PvP, learn from some experts, and play alongside all of you next season. All right, the only thing that I have left here is close. So I think that means my rambling on here today is over. Thanks so much for listening to this, for watching this. Really excited to see a bunch of y'all next week at the reveal.
All right. Take everything said with a grain of salt, because as many people in the community may be like, I've been burned before, they can say one thing, they change their mind, whatever it may be. Joe is trying. That's all I can say. And if you put yourself in his shoes, there's a lot of the internet right now that is like not too thrilled. If you go look at Steam charts, some of their numbers are down. And some people are like, well, maybe they only do this because their numbers are down. Whatever your reason for watching this and having an opinion about what they said, that is totally fine. My opinion on it is very simple. Words are one thing, actions are another. Let's see what they do. If this is the promise, let's see if they can follow through with it. Are we going to get a map pack? When is it going to happen? What other changes are going to be happening? How much communication do we get? Is our armor sets going to be badass, or are they not? All of those things are going to come into play when you look back at this and wonder, was he talking out of his butt, or was he being real? Right now, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and see how it goes. It is up to you guys if you do the same thing. And there are a lot of games out there, if you want to take a break, now might be an okay time to take a break and wait for the final shape, because it does sound like final shape is going to be probably going to crush it, at least in the story, delivery, and narrative that you guys probably expect from most of these expansions. I know this is a long video, but I did kind of want to talk about the different pieces of it. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you have thoughts, opinions about any of this, throw them in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, whether it's Destiny, whether it's multiple other games, I enjoy games. I enjoy covering a lot of Destiny, but I also enjoy many other games too. So if you enjoy my content, find me on Twitch, Ebontis, Twitter, Ebontis, or X, if you want to call it that. I still don't know if I ever will. And then YouTube, right here. Good way to support the channel for free. Subscribe, hit the alert bell, helps my videos make it to you. If you want to go farther and you enjoy my content a bit more, become a member of my YouTube channel or find me on Patreon. It's Ebontis there as well. Thank you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. I will be streaming, as I said, the showcase next week. So I will see you Tuesday morning, bright and early, over on Twitch. Have a good one, everybody. I'll see you soon.